All right, Jody Jackson's in for Gambo today. The news just came down. A simple 2-sentence statement that was released by the Suns moments ago. Phoenix Suns guard Bradley Beal will miss the next 2 weeks of play to rehab a right ankle sprain. He will be reevaluated at the start of January.
Well, I mean, it could be worse than that. 2 weeks and then evaluate. You know, what we were hearing was 2 to 3 weeks maybe. So I guess it's pretty decent news.
It's
I sound so excited about that.
yeah, it's decent. It's all right.
I mean, what do you expect?
No, well, look, you say 2 to 3 weeks, and you just assume 3. You assume the worst, and honestly, to your point, if it's just 2 weeks, that's not that bad. You know, that's it could be a lot worse, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, he was in a lot of pain. So you're thinking, you know, again, my reference point is a lot of football, right? Including my son playing. You have a high ankle sprain. That's like a long time. Okay.
Yes.
So
yes.
Luckily nothing like that. But yeah, at this point, and this is, you touched on it when we came on the air, or when we did the first Sun segment, is that, you know, Bradley Beal doesn't want the stigma of being injured all the time, but now our expectations have been lowered a little bit, right?
They
because
have.
You're just thinking, all right, well, let's just get him back at some point.
And your expectation level is lowered, and your fear factor gets just raised a little bit, and it's inevitable. You can't change how you feel about this. And as much as Bradley Beal, we can sit here and defend him and say, you know, he didn't want this. He didn't ask for this. He wants to be out there playing. He's hurting 10 times more than any Suns fan. By the same token, you know, by the time he comes back and, you know, these are the games he's missing. He's missing tomorrow against Portland, Friday against Sacramento, Christmas Day against Dallas, the 27th against Houston, the 29th against Charlotte, the 31st against Orlando. Monday, January 1st, New Year's Day, they host the Portland Trail Blazers. At that point, you're down to about 50 games left in the season.
It was not the plan at all.
No.
This was not the plan. This is not what was expected when he was brought over here. So I understand what you're saying. And by the way, that Christmas night game, those are the type of games that you wanted to see.
Absolutely.
The Dallas
The big
Mavericks
three.
and the Phoenix Suns at their best.
Yep.
On the court. And, you know, I go back to also, though, even in July when they were signing free agents, and I did some shows with Luke, and we were talking about how we loved all the pieces and the parts, and it was all going to work behind the big three, and it was going to be. And I know it all hinges on the big three being there, but you're going to have to, we're at a point now where we have to see more from everybody, and we have to see that team defense.
Yep.
And you're just going to have to see the more consistent effort throughout the 4 quarters. And look, I covered the Suns for many years, and it's ebb and flow, right? You're never going to play at the same level from quarter 1 to quarter 4. And, you know, at the there was a big chunk of a year or two when I covered them where they always had a lull in the third quarter. Mm-hmm. Okay. And it's just, I understand how that goes. And we saw it last night. And they had to beat Washington. It was just, they couldn't lose to Washington.
It would have been a disaster if we're in here and they lost to Washington.
Yeah, but but you have to you can't have those lapses that last for a whole quarter, more than a quarter. You know, if you're going to be who you think you are, not to go back to the late great Dennis Green, but who are, you know, you are who you say you are. They are who we thought they were.
Phoenix Suns are who we thought they were.
Who are they?
Who are they,
Dave?
That's the hardest question to answer because what the Suns are right now, okay, are a consistently fractured basketball team. And by fractured, I don't mean like emotional. I just mean they're never whole, okay? And that's what I mean by that. There's always.
So you mean fractured, you don't mean fragile. Or do you mean
You know
fragile?
what? Honestly, you could use the word fragile just as easily,
That's
too.
what I was having in my mind when you spoke about fracture. I frankly don't even want to say the word fracture around them.
Guess another bone might break or something like
stop
that.
It.
Yeah,
Just stop it.
By fractured, they're never whole. They haven't been whole once. They're not going to be whole anytime
24
soon.
minutes.
They had 24 minutes at the big, and even then, for those 24 minutes, no Grayson Allen, no Eric Green.
Yeah, that's true. Grayson Allen's become a huge part of this, and he's, you know.
So they're a team that's never whole. They're a team that, for whatever reason, has struggled mightily with the fourth quarter. That fourth quarter against the Knicks was embarrassing. It was embarrassing how poorly they played. And if they hadn't reversed that trend last night against the Wizards, then we would have been in here talking about how did you lose to them? They had 4 wins all year kind of thing. Their defense has been atrocious all year. Here's the things we know about the Suns. And what we know baked in is that you would think a team with Kevin Durant and Devin Booker shouldn't be at times so unwatchable. I mean, it's right. Like, I mean, it's crazy to think that 2 of the 10 best players in the NBA on the same roster, on the same floor at the same time. And it looks like,
and they had to win it last night. They had to win that game.
Yeah. But the thing about Beal is if I'm going to go back to the news that he's going to be out 2 weeks, is that you, as a Suns fan, how can you not think to yourself that there's going to be more, that there's going to be another one, that there's going to be, with Beal, how can you not, you say to yourself, I said this for months going into the season. I would say, look, you just almost have to bake in that Bradley Beal's going to miss 30 games. Right? Like, it's unfair.
Because we all find ourselves having to wrap our minds around something. And so we say, all right, well, what's the expectation now? Or what can we... You have to adjust your mindset to what can you handle, right?
Yeah.
What's going to make you feel better about this?
Yeah. So what that's and that along those lines, I have to assume Bradley Beal is only going to be available about 50 games. All right, and that was before the season started. Well, guess what? By the time he's done with this, you're down to about 50 games, which means your margin for error for Bradley Beal meeting our minimum expectation has already been met. You've already spent it, right? It's like your FSA card when you're out of money, and now you got to go into your personal checking account to pay for the doctor's appointment.
It's not good.
Right. You've already ran out of your FSA money, and it's July, and you're like, oh my God, I still have all these medical bills. How But that's the Suns' FSA card with Bradley Beal. It's done. You're down to the 50 games that you have to have out of Bradley Beal. Kenny, I don't know.
Now, there's a chance when he comes back from the ankle that he stays healthy, but it's because of the track record, it's a small chance.
It feels like a small chance, yeah. So that's the news, and Bradley Beal's going to be out a couple of weeks.
So did you give us the day?
The January...
I just want to pay it off to all the people listening right now that said you were going to tell us
Wednesday,
the day.
January 3rd at home against the LA Clippers. Unless you're thinking it's
seems a little
January
early.
1st. That's 2 weeks.
I'm going 3rd. I'm going, what's the one after the 3rd?
Friday, January 5th against the Miami Heat.
Let's do that.
Okay, you want to go Friday,
That's where
January
I'm going.
5th? Okay.
Yeah.
That would be 2.5 weeks.
Miami Heat. That was my team before the Phoenix Suns.
I know. That's why you picked
Way
them.
back. I was little, had a Glen Rice. I got at the mall, the Hollywood Mall, which doesn't exist, a Glen Rice card.
Really?
Like a basketball card. I was young.
You don't want to say how old
I
you were.
forget. I honestly forget how old I was, but I just remember thinking, look, Mom, this Glen Rice card. This is so cool.
And Mama Jackson should have known right then and there, right? Like what she was dealing with.
Oh, there were a lot of signs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
of
the
course,
sports
I'm sure.
fanaticism. Is that a word?
Yeah, that's a word.
I'm in Gambo's seat. I have to make up a word
Absolutely.
by the end of the day.
You have to not have command of the English language if you're going to sit there. It's a basic requirement of the role.
Thanks for watching Burns and Gambo. Click to see more from the guys and hit the button in the middle to subscribe so you never miss a video from Arizona sports.